Jujutsu Shenanigans is undoubtedly the biggest Jujutsu Kaisen Battlegrounds game on Roblox. But what if I told you that there was a time when it wasn't? Before JJS, a game called Sorcerer Battlegrounds held the spot, praised for its fun combat and crazy hype led by the amazing characters that it released. This, combined with the absolute hype train that was Jujutsu Kaisen's second season, and now you had a game that was destined for success. But unfortunately, due to bad decisions, long update droughts, and a little bit of ego, Sorcerer Battlegrounds would fall from grace, leading to Jujutsu Shenanigans taking its spot. It all happened exactly at February 2023, where a game called The Strongest Battlegrounds would release to the public, changing Roblox's history forever by introducing a simple but yet fresh take on PvP combat. Its fast-paced but extremely fun nature would send The Strongest Battlegrounds to the moon, bringing in tens of thousands of players shortly after its release. Many aspiring Roblox developers had closely watched the insane success that The Strongest Battlegrounds had encountered overnight. Its format was so unbelievably simple, and they realized that this was something that they could make as well. And so many different developers instantly got to work, separated by their differing approaches but united by the same task, which was to make a Battlegrounds game. This led to the first wave of Battlegrounds games being officially born, with Sorcerer Battlegrounds being part of that batch. Like The Strongest Battlegrounds, Sorcerer's Battlegrounds, or SBG, which I may also refer to it from now on, adapted the fast-paced fighting formula in its own way. And although the game wasn't as smooth or as polished as TSB at the time, it had something that its competitor didn't. Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen's second season would end up releasing on July 2023, only 1 month after Sorcerer Battlegrounds' initial launch. This absolutely phenomenal season would catapult Jujutsu Kaisen to widespread popularity, and riding ever so humbly on its coattails was Sorcerer Battlegrounds. Sorcerer Battlegrounds would go from just another Battlegrounds clone to a full-blown staple game overnight, with tens of thousands of players now frequenting the game every day. With the game's newly culminated success, Sorcerer Battlegrounds owner, who went by All Rage, now knew that he had to make serious decisions on SBG if he wanted to maintain not only the hype, but the game itself. At the time that Jujutsu Kaisen's second season had been released, SBG only had 2 characters in total, Gojo and Yuji. For a month-old game, Sorcerer's Battlegrounds had made pretty good progress. In comparison though, its competitor TSB had already made it to the development of its 4th character. The bar also would raise with each update that The Strongest Battlegrounds dropped, as the quality of their content became fancier and more polished, something that Sorcerer's Battlegrounds was greatly lacking at the time. Outrage was now faced with a dilemma. He could either A, slow down the frequent rate at which the game updated, risking the loss of its current hype, or B, continue the frequent update streak and work at a faster rate on characters, but at the cost of potentially having poor animations and clunky mechanics. Outrage was also at this point in time a solo developer working with the assistance of probably 1 to 2 people, while its competitor TSB was building up to become an entire team of developers. Outrage would end up opting for the second option. As time went on, more and more characters that were introduced in Jujutsu Kaisen's second season would come to Sorcerer Battlegrounds. Todo, Toji, Yuta, and many more staples of the second season would eventually make their way into SBG, further adding on to the game's growing popularity. Outrage's skills as both an animator and developer also became increasingly better with each released character. A couple of months and 5 characters in, and Outrage now had the resources that he needed to get other developers on board to work on SBG. By this point though, Outrage would seem to start focusing on option A from earlier, meaning that quality was starting to become the focus of SBG's updates. Due to this, Sorcerer's Battlegrounds update schedule would take a nosedive, going from weekly to monthly updates. In the state of today's Battlegrounds genre, this probably doesn't sound like that big of an issue, as many of the bigger games nowadays have become known to take longer breaks. Cough, TSB. Back then though, frequent updates were the norm, with many developers trying to pump out consistent updates in the midst of the Battlegrounds craze. This was especially true for Outrage's game, but one thing that separated Sorcerer Battlegrounds from the other Battlegrounds games in the genre was the fact that there were no other Jujutsu Kaisen Battlegrounds games that could rival SBG. Thanks to this, Outrage could get away with the slowdown of updates for now, but on the horizon there approached a little game that would change the course of Sorcerer Battlegrounds history forever. Jujutsu Shenanigans. Officially opening to the public sometime in April 2024, Jujutsu Shenanigans, or JGS for short, was a divergence from the smooth and modern style that TSB had cemented as the bar that a lot of developers thought they needed to replicate if they wanted a successful Battlegrounds game. Taking inspiration from Roblox's core roots, JGS introduced a retro, destructive, but funny twist to the genre. And although the animations weren't the craziest thing in the world, the gameplay, new mechanics, and random moments made up for what it lacked. In other words, there was a whole lot of shenanigans.
Oh, brother, this...
Although the release of Jujutsu Shenanigans wasn't an immediate threat to Sorcerer Battlegrounds, it was definitely a looming concern in terms of rivalry. It also received heaps of attention from content creators that helped spread the word that there was a new JJK game in town. But regardless of all this fanfare, Jujutsu Shenanigans was only a little hatchling in a world of big ducks. And like with any new Battlegrounds game, it was bound to receive a great amount of initial attention. On the flip side, Sorcerer Battlegrounds now had its first actual competitor, meaning that All Rage would have to start picking up the pace if he wanted the game to hang with Jujutsu Shenanigans weekly updates. But he didn't really seem to care that much about the competition, as SBG's monthly update schedule would stay the same. This was apparently due to a lack of motivation on All Rage's part. Despite the slow update schedule, highly demanded characters that the community wanted would still end up being released to the game in the following months. Megumi, Maito, Kashimo, and even Maharaga as a second awakening for Megumi. Although these characters managed to re-energize the fan base's intrigue in Sorcerer's Battlegrounds, the game was on the slow decline with every update. Eventually, SBG's update schedule will come to bite it in the back, as many players grew bored and tired of waiting every month for the next update, especially in a time where frequent updates were the norm. Tensions in the Sorcerer's Battlegrounds Discord will start rising, with many players criticizing All Rage for his supposed lack of work ethic on the game. Some people even joined solely to rage bait All Rage and call his game garbage. With so much pressure being placed on him, All Rage was finally explode, leading to the infamous July 10th, 2024 incident. To summarize what happened, it all began on an ordinary day inside the SBG Discord. Out of nowhere, All Rage bans a random member without explanation. When questioned about this by community members, he dismissed their concerns and kept on banning. Within the hour, 3 more people were then banned from SBG's Discord server. The community, puzzled, tried to figure out why All Rage had started randomly banning the server's members. Well, it turned out that All Rage was targeting users that he believed were racist for using a specific GIF outside the server, which he deemed as offensive. Even normal members who criticized the bans were banned themselves by All Rage, purely out of ego. According to a former member that was there at the time of the incident, the GIF wasn't actually racist and was meant to mock a person who was racist. Still, All Rage would go on to power trip even more, reportedly banning up to 20 members, including staff and testers of his own game. His own staff team, who were openly very displeased with All Rage's actions, confronted him. This would lead him to lash out, banning even more people in both the SBG developer and official server alike. And by the end of the day, half of the active chatters, several testers, and the entire staff team were now gone from the SBG server. A few days after the incident, All Rage would have to rebuild the staff team from scratch and deal with leaks from bitter testers who were now banned from the server. An apology about the situation would then be posted, but not by All Rage. It instead was posted by the new community manager, Bursus. But according to Schreienfeld, the former community manager that ended up leaving the SBG server, All Rage threw the staff team under the bus despite everything being at the fault of All Rage himself. This led Schreienfeld to release a 30-minute expose revealing how All Rage behaves behind the scenes.
Keep far away. If you want to enjoy the game, do so. That is completely fine. Just do not get involved with All Rage. It is not worth it.
Regardless of this incident, development on Sorcerer Battlegrounds continued. An update releasing both Maharaga and Kashimo to the public would be released 10 days after the incident, and it would seem that everything was officially put in the past. Although the quality of the content inside the updates themselves had improved drastically from the year before, Sorcerer Battlegrounds update schedule was still a huge problem that would eventually become worse. But All Rage still seemingly looked very hopeful and remained very active in the sneak peeks channel of his Discord server. With each message that he sent, he promised that the coming update would be big, and eventually, before the community knew it, SB was 6 months into 2025 without any update at all. This long stretch without any new content was absolutely killing the game, as the player count would dwindle with each passing month. Finally, on May 16th, 2025, Sorcerer Battlegrounds partnered with longtime supporter of the game, Z Mythical, to bring forth an announcement regarding the long-awaited update. In this video, Allrage went on to promise that the game would start releasing bi-weekly updates.
But the only reason I even agreed is because Allrage promised to start updating the game bi-weekly.
And also teased that the update would happen next weekend. So finally, 1 week after the announcement trailer, Sorcerer Battlegrounds finally updated. This update managed to be a hit, as the content within it brought back a lot of players to the game. Gojo Mastery, Kashima's completed ultimate kit, character reworks, and an upgrade to the overall combat system had revived SBG once again. Then only a month later, Allrage would kind of keep his promise on bi-weekly updates by releasing a brand new one on June 30th, 2025. This update would star Kashimo, who would now be free for all players. This now brings us to August 2025, where Sorcerer Battlegrounds, although receiving lots of cares from its devs as of recent, sits at around a 76% player decrease from last year. Does this mean that the game is bad and should stop updating? No, but for a game that emerged from the first wave of Battlegrounds games on the platform, it is definitely disappointing that even with its massive head start, that Sorcerer's Battlegrounds will lose its spot to Jujutsu Shenanigans.